I am as real and as raw as they come.
So you got into sales at the age of 15, cold calling.
I ended up becoming a dancer, not ballet. I just needed a chance. I just needed somebody to give me a chance because as you can see, and you look at my resume now, I've worked for some of the biggest companies and I absolutely excel at what I do, but I couldn't prove that back then. I went from being a dancer to working to one of the largest companies in the world, and that was Cisco. Lost my brother to suicide. It was going through experiences like that and everything that I went through that I realized my story can actually help other people.
You were someone who clearly had to be in survival mode for your childhood. You mentioned you lost your brother. Your story is one of going from survive to thrive.
Human beings don't want other human beings to know the real them, right? Only what they feel like they should see.
Totally. Well, look, Angie, it's wonderful to see you. Thank you for coming on the podcast. It is just an honor to have you here, and maybe you can do an intro. I remember the first time we met one another. It was when you were with NetApp, and we were in, was it Santa Clara? Over near San Jose somewhere? Yeah, over there. We're doing enterprise prospecting, hunting, and it was crazy. And you were the first person that that I ever saw do video prospecting. And I'll never forget it. And you said, hey, because I said, hey, if anyone wants to consider doing video prospecting, then maybe you can. And you said, I'm going to shoot the video. And then you didn't only shoot the video, you attached it to some emails and sent it to your two, I won't name them, the two big household brand names, right, who hadn't responded to you. And they both responded that evening. And I was just like, wow, this lady means business. She's high agency. And then we stayed in touch, and it's just been brilliant knowing you, and so I'm so pleased you've come on today. But yeah, I'll be quiet, let you introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are, and then we'll get into a really good conversation, I think, today. So thank you for joining.
Yeah. I mean, do I need an intro? I think everyone knows me. So I'm Angie with 2 E's. It's funny. I'll give a quick backstory. My real name is Angela, and people are always surprised when we do reservations, like, oh, that's your name. I'm like, yeah, I branded Angie, not just with 1 E, but I added that second E, right? And ever since I did that throughout my career, that became the brand. So it's Angie with 2 E's. My last name is Tajouidi. And I want to say, Ben, it's been a pleasure knowing you as well. You're amazing. I feel like you and I connected day one on several levels, right? And so thank you for having me today. I have a very diverse story, as you know, and we'll probably see bits and pieces of that throughout. But yeah. I am in the IT space. I work with channel partners, and starting from when you knew me as an enterprise account executive to today working in those enterprise accounts, but on the channel side. So really excited to be here.
And with you're with Darktrace, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I was like, where do I know Darktrace from? Because I know the brand, and I was like, Formula One. It's Formula One, and you guys sponsor McLaren F1, right? Which automatically makes you cool, and now they're winning, right?
Yes. Well, we did technically just end that partnership, but yeah, I don't know if you saw the video where I built that McLaren Lego. That took me several days. But yes, I'm at Darktrace, and so we're focused on AI and cybersecurity.
Yeah, and let's get into all of that. But I want to go back to prospecting. Obviously, we've got lots of salespeople that will be tuned into this podcast, and they can learn a lot from you, Angie. And one of the things you said, we synced on a number of levels, and yeah, I felt completely the same. And the program that we were working on together was all about prospecting with empathy and emotional connection, and and that required creativity. And then anybody just go search up Angie on LinkedIn. It's a masterclass how you've used LinkedIn strategically, But that's why I wanted to go first with you, Angie. Creativity, just you're oozing creativity in everything that you do. And then your motivation and passion is just unparalleled. So, but yeah, creativity, that's what I guess I first learned from you, was you've got to be ultra creative to get people's attention.
Yes. Yes, I that is the key. So I mentor a lot of women in my industry, and I have for several years. And that's the one thing that I preach next to building your own brand is being creative. How are you going to stand out from your competition or from, you know, the person sitting next to you, right? So, but that ties in with being vulnerable. So part of being creative is putting yourself out there in a way that's very different, right? So in order to do that, you have to be vulnerable. And I feel like as society, you know, people kind of lack that. It's hard for people to be vulnerable and put themselves out there. You know, human beings don't want other human beings to know the real them, right? Only what they feel like they should see. And it could be something big, like a backstory, but it also could be something small, like the way you talk on camera, the way, you know, your eyes look, or, you know, so it prevents them from doing those things, right? So those two go hand in hand. But being creative, it's always been a strong suit of mine, like being able to sit down and think, how can I, you know, do this? And that's where I thought of the video prospecting. And like now with AI, I can take it to a whole nother level because I have these awesome ideas and I'll just go to G, that's his name, ChatGPT. But I'm like, hey, G, I have this awesome idea. Tell me like how I could get more creative, or tell me what I could do that would be, you know, add on to this list, for example.
Yeah. No, I love it. ChatGPT, I'm chatting to ChatGPT the whole day, right? Like I'm walking our dog and I'm talking to ChatGPT. That's how sad it's become. But as a tool for ideation and coming up with creative ideas, that's such a great use case for ChatGPT. So you're calling your ChatGPT G. It's got a name. So clearly you use it a lot then, right?
Oh yeah, I purposely feed it so much information. I'll say, hey, G, update your memory. This, right, is happening in my life right now, or whatever. And so he knows, you know, at any one point, when I ask him a question, he'll be able to answer educatedly, right? And I know some people are very weary of like, you know, you're feeding them all that information. And I'm like, yeah, why not? It's only going to help me.
Yeah, how much of that information gets stored? Like, if I know the conspiracy theorist will say it's all being stored. Don't you worry. But I don't know. I'm sure a proportion of it is, but I think increasingly, it just seems to me that the benefits are going to offset the risks, and people get more comfortable with it over time. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't put my commercials in it, I wouldn't put proprietary information into it, but I think people are going to be sharing more and more with it, right? It's just going to be the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely here to stay. It's going to evolve with us, and it's going to just be part of our everyday life. I think at one point, the information that we withhold right now will eventually be information that we share willingly, because it's going to be that entrenched in our life. So I get it, right? There's certain information you don't want to give. You know, maybe developers don't want to put in their code and put it out there because it's very unique to them, right? And that's what makes them unique right now, as an example. But you know, personal information, when I die, I can't take it with me, so they can have it. Hopefully they can use it for good. I look at it like material, you know, like, well, you know, I mean, we're only here temporarily, so I'm going to make the best of it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, if we're on the topic of AI, so over at Darktrace, tell everybody what you guys are doing over at Darktrace. It does look like a very interesting company. I think it was a British company, right?
Yeah, well, so they're based in the UK, and we were recently, about 7-8 months ago, acquired by Thoma Bravo. So lots of exciting change ahead, but Darktrace, like I said, it's focused on cybersecurity, and it's built on AI. And actually everybody at Darktrace hates using the word AI because recently It's so popular. It's kind of like cyber resilience. Okay, cool. Everybody has it. Everybody has AI. And to be transparent, so sorry, my phone. We've been using AI for a long time, right? When we think about Alexa or GPS, we are just using it in a different way now. But all that to say, they built this on AI before it became what it is today. So a true pioneer in the industry. And what makes us really unique, and again, don't judge me because I am not an engineer. I'm in sales for a reason. But the best way I could put it is, we're really unique because we work with a lot of other cybersecurity vendors that you would maybe consider our competition, because we offer the whole portfolio, right? We're not just focused on email security or just NDR, but we offer both. From the network layer into cloud. And so offering that whole platform where you can see everything at once kind of sets us apart from everyone else. But like I said, we're able to work with some of these, like if you want to use Darktrace for one solution, but you would like to use, Mimecast or Article for something else, then we're able to kind of integrate with that.
Yeah, so it doesn't need a kind of world domination approach to every single customer account, which is refreshing to hear. And look, I've been selling into enterprise for more years than I care to remember, and you do have to collaborate on occasion with your competitors, right, to get the best possible outcome for the customer, which everybody should win from, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I learned that the hard way, because I feel like in the beginning of my career, it was, stay away from them. But actually, I call them frenemies. That's like my word. And they're your frenemies. I mean, you build a relationship with them because at the end of the day, this is a relationship business. And plus, the guy at, Mimecast will maybe be at Darktrace tomorrow and you'll be somewhere else, and you guys kind of just play musical chairs. It's a funny industry like that. But we do help each other out at the end of the day. I feel like, when it comes to our customers, that's really what it's about, right? So what do they need? How can we help them? And sometimes that's collaborating with each other.
Yeah, indeed. Of course. And you mentioned when kind of earlier in sales, how did you, in fact, I don't think I even know this, Angie. How did you get into sales? Did it find you or did you find it?
Okay. Do you really want to know? Well, I think that sales is something that you're born with, like the ability to have. So you can go to college and get taught how to do business or handed a script, but again, this is a relationship business, right? So you're only going to go so far. And I was always told that I had the gift of gab. And so when I was 15, I was emancipated through the state of California, which for those of you who don't know is where you become a legal adult. And so I worked and took care of myself. And I worked at this telemarketing company, which I think, cold calling is the best base you could have for a sales career. And I sold, do you remember the Ron Popeil Showtime Rotisserie and Barbecue? They used to have like this infomercial and it was like, set it and forget about it. It's an American thing, so if you don't know, it's okay.
Okay, no, I'll look it up.
Yeah, it was the old. It was like the old George Foreman, and I was.
Oh yeah. We had that, and we all bought it and poured the back on our food from the grill.
Yeah, so it was called the Showtime Rotisserie and Barbecue, and it was this infomercial that was on all the time, late night, before we had internet and we had to watch the TV. And I would call people's homes and get their credit card information over the phone and sell it to them. And then I went from that to promotional advertising, I've danced around everywhere, to real estate. I still have my real estate license with EXP just as a referral agent right now. But I kind of just dabbled everywhere. And again, starting when I was 15, it wasn't planned.
Wow.
It was just somebody got me a job there and I became the #1 rep, like in the first 6 months. And I didn't realize that it was something that I was good at until I got there.
How do you, unpack that emancipation, and you become an adult at the age of 15. Is that a California thing? What is it?
No. So Well, and only speaking for the US, I believe you can do it in any state, but it's the Declaration of Emancipation, and it's a legal proceeding that you can go to court and become a legal adult. So technically, like, you can't sign a lease on an apartment or do anything until you're 18. But if you become legally emancipated, you then can sign a lease and you have this document showing I'm a legal adult. So I don't need a signature from my parent. But further from that, like, if I were to get in trouble with the law or anything, which my mom was definitely scared of back then,
Right.
she was no longer responsible. So I was definitely responsible. The only thing I still wasn't able to do was vote and buy
Right.
cigarettes at
Okay.
that time.
Yeah, you can do it. That's just insane, isn't it?
Like a
You
couple
can do
laws that were
any.
like,
Yeah, you can do anything else that you like apart from vote. you're
right,
you're responsible. You're responsible enough to be prosecuted, but not vote.
right. Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's just all these crazy rules, isn't it? But so you got into sales at the age of 15, cold calling. That's just crazy. And then what happened then? So you mentioned real estate. Did you get your real estate license? What did you do after that initial kind of role, cold calling people?
Yeah, so I kind of hopped around and I sold, promotional advertising, as mentioned, and our focus was on real estate agents. And so we would sell like these pens and keychains with your business name on them, or fly swatters. And it's like, we'd put like these fun, creative slogans on there, like, "Hey, call so and so at Remax," and they'd have their name. And again, it was collect your credit card over the phone. They'd spend a few $100 and we'd ship them their supplies. And I've thought about it. I was calling all these realtors and I'm like, why don't I get in real estate? Because I was just, the one thing about cold calling, even though I was good at it, after a couple years, it's such an exhausting job. And that's why anytime I talk to inside teams, I treat them with such respect, because I'm like, you guys have the hardest job, and people who haven't done that, they have no idea how hard it is, because the amount of rejection that you go through, reading the same script over and over, and you can only get so creative when you're talking to somebody, but it's really the rejection that gets to you, because you have to go through like 100 no's before you get to a yes. And so I decided to get my real estate license in 2007 when the market crashed. So needless to say, I didn't do anything with it back then.
Great timing.
Yeah, it was. So I was like, well, I'm here to stay. But that's how I got that. And it's just something that I've maintained. After some time, I got my cosmetology license as well. So I did hair for a while, and I've kind of just dabbled in a lot of things over the years. Like I said, I have a diverse background, because I didn't take your typical path. I didn't go to college and then end up at this job and take a position and kind of work. I have a lot of experience everywhere, which I think has really been able to help me be resilient and being able to adapt and try new things much easier, right? Because I have all of that experience.
Yeah. And look, we'll talk maybe a little bit around what you've done in terms of building Angie's world, and just your incredible story, Angie. It's just amazing what you've achieved. And the only kind of possible parallel I can draw about what you just said going into sales with my experience was, I don't know what I would have done without it. I left school with, we kind of do our GCSEs, and then you do these kind of other grades before you go to university. They're called A-levels in this country. I failed all of my A-levels twice. I mean, what the hell did I do them the second time around? I had to do another year. I just spent another year and then failed all of them again. So all of my exams.
Oh, wow.
And so university just wasn't an option for me. Do you know what? Without sales, I don't like even want to think what would have become of me, because I saw what became of the other people I was hanging out with. Yeah. So sales just picked me up and trained me up, and thank God. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's a backbone, right? I mean, you can make great money in sales, but being able to it's like a support system, right? A lot of who I work with become friends of mine, and we know each other, right? Working with each other over the years. But I agree with you. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't get that, help with that one job, working as a telemarketer as my start, to know like this is what I needed to do or where I was meant to be, right? And that's when I was like told, you can sell ice to an Eskimo. And so, and it's funny too, because now that I'm mentioning it, I've always been in the sales side of things. And so I never thought about being on the channel side, and then how I ended up here, right? And it's still in sales, but not as directly. But back to your point with the whole schooling thing, it took me 3 times to pass my real estate exam the first time. So schooling was not my forte either.
No, it's just like academia for me is, I mean, maybe if I went and got tested or something, you'd be able to put a label on what's kind of not going on in my brain that other people seem to have. But yeah, for me, sales was great. And you mentioned channel. Well, that's where I ended up purely by chance. I got my job at Computer Center, and thank goodness for that. And just got trained. Most of it through learning on the job, right? It wasn't like,
yes,
it wasn't too much formal training, but I call it training because that's what really kind of beat me kind of into shape a little bit, really. Was those first couple of years in that job role. It was tough. And then success follows, and then it kind of all falls into place a little bit. So you got to 2007, property market crashes around your ears a bit. Yeah. Lehman Brothers disappears. Just a few things happened, and then what happened after that? You got through the property market, and at some point you ended up in big technologies. Do you?
Okay, are you ready for this story? Because so I've shared this story with a few people. I think that I have never shared it like publicly. Not anything I'm ashamed of anymore, but for many years, it was something that I held very, very secret because I was ashamed. And it was like, I was undeserving of being in the position that I'm in or working for these companies. But at one point I had been in a very abusive marriage around that time, by the way. And so I had to do something. I obviously wasn't going to be able to pick up on real estate in 2007. And I was working these 2 telemarketing jobs and just not making enough money, especially living in San Diego. And I ended up becoming a dancer, and not ballet. So I was an exotic dancer for 10 years. And it's funny because, and the money there was really good. And for 10 years I did that, and I met a lot of really talented, beautiful women. And I think that the reason I'm not ashamed anymore and I don't mind sharing is because I feel like there's this persona, like this, illusion of what dancing is and the type of people that are there. But there are many just hardworking women trying to get through school or getting their doctorate or becoming a lawyer, or they are single parents trying to get through. And that was me at that time, a single parent. And it allowed me to spend time with my daughter and be able to work at night. But year after year, I was, getting more away from the sales side of things and not really having a resume to build. And, my mom and family used to ask me, well, what are you going to do? You can't do this forever. And I'm like, well, we'll see what happens. I kind of always just kind of fly.
Oh, yeah. There's a sort of natural lifespan of the exotic dancer, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, well, I probably have till 40, maybe, with those options. But it did weigh heavy on me. And that's when at one point I got my cosmetology license, and I tried that, but nothing could ever compare financially, right? To what I was already making. And one day I was just done. I was done because that has its own unique set of problems with, kind of the way women are treated. That could be pretty accurate. And I was just over that kind of lifestyle. And people were like, well, you didn't go to school, and I don't know, how you're going to end up, working for these companies. Cause I said, I want to get into IT. And I knew a little bit about it. I had friends who were in IT. I knew some of the lingo, and I just had single parents trying to get through. And that was me at that time. I just needed a chance. I just needed somebody to give me a chance, because as you can see, and you look at my resume now, I've worked for some of the biggest companies, and I absolutely excel what I do, but I couldn't prove that back then. Right.
Yeah.
And I definitely couldn't say I work at Cheetahs. Okay. Because they're going to be like, what is this? So I was actually in Raleigh, North Carolina when this happened. And I was just praying and hoping that these interviews that I went on, that I didn't see them the night before. Cause I'm like, oh, please, you never know.
Oh, yes. Yeah, of course.
Especially IT guys. I mean, geez, the amount. So I ended up, like, long story short, and I'll leave some of those details out. I went from being a dancer to working to one of the largest companies in the world, and that was Cisco. And I remember going in there, like, I have my tattoos. At that time I had a faux hawk. I looked so different from the rest. I'm from California. I'm in the middle of the Bible Belt. I was so different. And they actually turned me down. And so I went back to doing that for a little bit. And then 4 weeks later, they called me back and they said, hey, we want to hire you. And I was like, oh my goodness. And later, one of the managers told me that during that process, they were like, her look is too sharp. And, that was why they initially turned me down, just based on looking at me. But he was like, I was a huge advocate. And I was like, this is what we need. We need, innovative people like this. And I did end up actually receiving an innovation award while I was there. But that's how I got my start into IT. It was literally someone giving me the chance. And I'm a huge believer in, like, you can look at a resume. I hate resumes, because you can teach the product. To your point, we can go to a company, they can teach us the product. You can't teach everything else. You can't teach the grit, the tenacity, the drive, the passion. And I think that's what they saw.
And so what did they, so let me just get that right. They turned you down initially, didn't quite, were the looks not quite what we were looking for here, but then they changed their mind. How did that happen?
Well, from what I was told, they were doing another round of hiring, and I got brought back up. And it was, one or two of the managers that insisted that, hey, we need somebody like her that's a little bit different. And they had called me back. So over there, they have like a virtual sales org in Raleigh. And so they do like these big hires, and you go through like a boot camp. And I loved that, because I knew I was going to learn the technology once I got on there. And I did, right? Within 90 days, I knew their whole portfolio and was able to leverage that. And then that was, having the sales experience that I had before. I mean, that was there, but now I was finally in IT, and I was a true seller. There's no more. Well, I was in the virtual sales org, still on the phones, but it was my first step. And I'm forever grateful to them for giving me that opportunity, and everybody who rooted for me, because again, it was just that chance.
Yeah. And they took a risk, right? I totally get it. They love to see the resume with, hey, I went to university and to college, I got this degree, and I've done this communication skills course, and then I was working for this, donating my time to charity. And some people just aren't gonna come and present like that. And Angie, you're definitely one of them.
Ben, you have no idea. Like, I had imposter syndrome. Like, I was hearing them talk around the office. Oh, I went to Yale, and I went here, and I was like, don't ask me where I went. I didn't even graduate high school. It was tough to have those conversations, because I felt like I don't belong here. So yeah. So I think at that time, though, I'm more blunt now, because I'm more confident. I don't have imposter syndrome. But back then, I played it a little more safe. It was more like, I went to a local community college in San Diego.
Yeah, just like kind of true, but not quite. I just lied. Yeah. And in those days, there wasn't like any like integration around systems, and you had to have a a university degree to get the job at computer center. They were hiring graduates.
Yeah.
So I just said I had one.
And they didn't ask for one?
I thought, are they going to figure out that he's lied? But no one ever said anything to me.
You had to, and I hate it. I hate like, oh, we had to lie, and somebody can look at it bad.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know.
Sorry.
Yeah. But you had to take that risk because, unfortunately, that's the way the system is. And I think people are seeing more now, and a lot of companies aren't requiring that you need a bachelor's degree anymore, or a master's, or this or that. But I did the same thing. Like, I think when I went to get I went to Paul Mitchell to school, and they were like, we need proof of your high school diploma and all of this. And I was like, okay. And, I had to go make one, and it is what it is. I mean, since then, I have my GED and everything, but it was one of those things where I was working at 15. I couldn't finish school. And so, but you look at now, I look at, a great example would be like my sister. She went to college, got her master's, and she's hundreds and thousands of dollars in debt. And she's, it's like, I mean, it's minimum wage is what she's making right now. And she's living in Vermont. And then you look at people who look at the sales industry, or, you look at people like Bill Gates, and you realize you don't necessarily need to take that route anymore. I think people are seeing that, you could do a trade school. I think that there's certain paths. If you want to be a lawyer, you want to become a doctor, you definitely have to take that path, but you don't have, and I feel like back then she was kind of pushed like, hey, you're the first one in the family, you got to do this, but it's not always the right way.
Well, there's a whole bunch of big tech companies, and probably others, we're in technology, so who don't require a degree, actually would prefer it if you join them earlier. I think 80% of IBM's roles, kind of the more early career roles, don't require a degree. They'd rather you skip that and started with them. And one of my customers, I think I'm getting this right, one of my customers are taking their first apprenticeship level kind of school leavers. So they're 16. So that's like, and normally it would be kind of 18 that you'd leave school here in the UK, but they're taking people at 16, which is the earliest you're allowed to leave. And I think that is fantastic. I'm so pleased that the industry's kind of moved that way, because I completely agree with you. And for, I guess, folks like us who just academia wasn't the way, this is where you can go in sales. And now we've got AI has come along. Person-to-person interaction is the last thing that's going to get AI'd out of this. So I think sales, I think the easy kind of more commodity end of selling will, of course, get automated. But I think complex sales will exist for a lot longer. So it's kind of, I feel as though it's kind of a good career move.
Yeah, I agree. That relationship part definitely is here to stay. And, even some of these other jobs in IT, like becoming an engineer or programmer, you don't necessarily need a degree for either, right? But I always had to, because you can take these trade schools or learn online now and get certs. And so you'll be well accredited. But I always had to consider that although I'm very street smart and I have that life experience, and that's how I learn, not everybody is like that. Right? Some people do need to take that academic route. And so it is important for them to do so. I'm glad that it's opened up where it's not necessarily for everyone and not a requirement for everyone, but it's more of a choice now. And I am seeing more and more, even outside of IT, companies that are just like, hey, if you have 10 years experience or 5 years experience, we're more interested in that than the degree. But the sales side of it, I think that AI, I don't think it's gonna take over, but man, is it helping so much. I mean, from
Yeah.
sales proposals to figuring out ROI plans to learning customers. It's, you know, no longer do I have to sit down for an hour and try to read a 10K, right? Who has time for that? Now it's like, hey, G, tell me about this company, or break this 10K down for me in like one paragraph, and give me the basics, or what's in their environment, who are the competitors working in there. And it's not, you always have to double fact. You got to double check, you know, the information, because it's not always accurate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, I think if anything, AI is going to enhance our position for quite a while.
That's a really interesting perspective. It makes us better, doesn't it, at what we do, and be even more customer focused because of the efficiency, the new level of efficiency of acquiring the knowledge about your end customer. And so, yeah, I hadn't considered that. It seemed more obvious now that you've said it, but that's a really important point that I hadn't registered with me. Well, but AI, but you're one of these people that will naturally see the positives, and so I come. You see the positives in so much, and that was what really impressed me about you when I first met you. Is you were just like, hey, I'll give this a try. No, and you know, I come across people today who are, you know, really have to be encouraged. Like, why don't you try this new thing? And they're like, you know, because the mind is always saying, hey, don't do it. Fear of failure, fear of looking stupid in front of other people. Yeah, natural fears. The mind always wants to say, don't try something new. But you're someone who seems to just naturally have overcome that. How do you think you do that?
I think I had to, you know, considering the story that I just told you and where I came from, I definitely had to get creative and do things differently in order to stand out, because I wasn't like everyone else. And so how was I going to be successful not using the same type of tools that they were using, right? And as far as being vulnerable, I mean, it took time. I think that, you know, again, you know, when you go back to the dancing story, I was taught to be ashamed and to never share that. And then as I got older, and a lot of people know I had lost my brother to suicide, and it was going through experiences like that, and everything that I went through, that I realized my story can actually help other people. Other women have gone through what I've gone through, or have had to take the steps that you and I have taken in order to get into a position to better ourselves and our family. And so in the beginning of my career, I was scared to post anything or do anything in fear that the company may reprimand me and say, hey, don't do this. And there was, you know, back then, a lot of rules, and, you know, you only wanted to post company content, and nobody liked or did anything on LinkedIn back then. And you wanted to be very careful, because if they saw anything, you'd be out. And then the older I got and the more experience I had, I was like, hey, whatever happens is supposed to happen. So far, the universe has brought me here, and I'm doing pretty well. So I do have a lot of trust in that. Like, you know, hey, if I was let go from NetApp, I could have been really negative about it, but I was like, you know what? When one door closes, another one opens. This was meant to be. And it was, and it ended up working out for the better. But back to your question, it's, so over the years, as I got the experience and I became more confident in who I was, I became confident in telling my story. And even when I met you years ago, this isn't something that I was going to just put out there. I was still a little scared, because, you know, I don't know what people were going to do, judge me. Maybe NetApp was going to fire me for this, but why? Because they're, you know, like, when I look back at it, there's really no good reason for it, but that was my thought process. And so, but the biggest thing was starting to blog and put my story out there and verbally start to tell people, which got me to overcome that fear of being vulnerable and pressing that click button, that, you know, hey, post. Because you can sit there and look at the videos that I make, and I can critique them all day long. And sometimes I'm just like, it is what it is, because people like the authentic part of it. And then that's the last piece. being authentic. And I think that is what has made me who I am today. I don't know how to be any other way. I can't be political. It's so hard for me to be fake. I am as real and as raw as they come. And I have had to learn to bite my tongue a little bit, but minus that, I think that's that piece that ties into the vulnerable part, right? Is I'm not afraid to be myself anymore.
Yeah. And look, it's absolutely to your credit, Angie. You are the most vulnerable, honest person that I've ever met, and I mean that. I really mean that. You mentioned your blog. You created Angie's World, which everyone can go and sign up to on LinkedIn, and where you share your story, and your story's tough. For me, I didn't know a lot of that about you, and caring about you. It was very tough for me to read that, but what an inspiration to other people, because your trajectory on life could have been so different. And you were someone who clearly had to be in survival mode for your childhood and for many years. You mentioned you lost your brother. Yeah, lots of tragedy. But your story is one of going from survive to thrive, when probably the majority of people wouldn't have done that, Angie. They would not. They might have just about survived, but they wouldn't have thrived. And that, I'd encourage everybody to check out Angie's World. You must have helped so many people by putting your story out there. It really is inspirational.
Thank you. Yeah. I do. I get people who write me privately from across the world saying, wow, and to me, that's everything that I need. I actually wish I had more time to write, because being in sales is the full-time job.
Yeah.
Than being a mom. But it is a goal of mine this year to write a little bit more. And I actually wanted to write on dancing. I've been trying to find the right storyline. Like, how do I want to put that out there? So this was a good start.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be more light on that industry, and it's more than just what it looks. And it's definitely got to have sales experience. But when you say I can go either way, I look at my brother, and him and I had a very similar childhood. And so you see the path that he went down and how it ended in tragedy. And then there was a very different path that I took. And I always looked at it like, people have a choice. Like it's why don't people feel driven to make these changes? Like, I've looked at my parents, like, why didn't they go out and like become millionaires and be successful? And why did they just like clean houses and this? And I had to learn that like not everybody has that mindset. That was really hard for me to overcome, because why is everybody thinking like me? And I looked at my brother the same way for a while, where it was like, why wasn't he strong enough? And I had to remind myself that not everybody has that. And it is hard. Like, people watching this, like, oh, you make it look easy. And I wish I could be like that. And it is, I know that it's not easy. And so for people who have fell over and over again, I fell so many times before I got here. I failed so many times to get to where I am. But the key is picking back up and saying, I'm going to do it. And one thing I practice in my life is the law of attraction. I'm a huge believer in that. I think you and I talked about that when we met.
That's right. Yeah.
His mindset is everything. So you are what you think. And when I was growing up, it was, be realistic and what's your backup plan? And I don't think I ever had that type of mindset, which has helped me, because again, what was my backup plan? I don't know. It's going to come.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. But I always had that in the back of my mind. And it's, I do tons of meditating. I do tons of visualization. I have a vision board Every morning when I get up at 4 a.m., I'm running and I'm looking at that vision board. And so it's these little things that I do in my day, that every day, and a gratitude list. It's everything I'm grateful for. And sometimes it's hard to be grateful, but sometimes it's something as simple as I have air conditioning, I have a washer and dryer, right? I don't have to wash clothes by hands. Like these little things that make you grateful for what you have, which allows you to have space to have more of that in your life.
Yeah, it's just it's not even it's beyond coping mechanism. It's just the way that you've crafted your life. And you hear about people's morning routines and all of this, and especially in this country, a lot of people would sort of roll their eyes a little bit at that, but it's so important. And it's your actions, your habits that are very, very difficult for lots of people to be consistent at, but they drive how your mind thinks, right? You know, the involuntary thought pattern that's coming up the whole time, often worries, often concerns, often negative future scenarios. I remember sharing all of that when I was in front of you guys in the first time we met, of just living and managing the mind. But you've had a lot of trauma thrown in as well, and you've somehow managed to use your body with your exercise, and that's self-talk that you're capable of. That kind of, I call that top-down control, body. Anything I do with my body's bottom-up control of the mind. That top-down control of the mind. You've mastered that, and
well, let me just say one thing.
It's impressive.
Thank you, but I have to say, it is hard. Like I battle my brain a lot, so I do. Right. I have that structure, but man, there are times where I'm just so exhausted from what my brain throws at me, or the negativity and the overanalyzing of things that. And I am sure most of people can relate to this. Like, isn't it just so exhausting living in your brain sometimes? And you're just like, I need to go check myself in somewhere. But it's trying to filter that out and acknowledging this is true, this isn't, right? Instead of just trying to ignore it. And that's really helpful. But it is a challenge. So for those who are like, you know, I wish I had that mindset. You do have that mindset. You can think this way. It just takes practice. So if you just do it every day, because I have fallen out of the habit of, you know, not practicing the law of attraction. And then once I have to actually get back into the habit again. So it happens to the best of us.
Yeah, that law of attraction is really interesting, and I believe in that stuff. And you'd have a lot of people, again, especially in this in the UK, but like, what a load of nonsense. No, I believe whatever you put out there, something's going on, and you do get something back, and that's what you have to just almost rely upon. Because I'm not a religious guy at all, but I believe there's something. I believe there's something else going on. I call it the universe. Other people would call it God. And I'd say, I don't know what it is. It's not like an iconoclastic type religion, but there's something there, and it's really important what you put out into the world. Which is, for me, was the whole reason I came out of the corporate world and do what I set up to do. We've had this conversation before when I've been desperately, when I was trying to recruit you, and don't worry, that's not gone away, Angie. That's coming back round. At some point, I'm coming back round to try and recruit you again. But yeah, you've got to focus on giving back, as cliched as that sounds. I think that's really important. And what you've done with Angie's World, absolutely, just, you know, it transcends anything that I've shared. You know, it's really, really, really amazing. And sharing about exotic, it's funny sharing about exotic dancing, because I'm just like, all right. I'm just like, no, yeah, Okay, fine. You know,
Right,
people are
not a big deal.
not. There's no judgment here. It's yeah, and understandable, but also probably a pretty smart career choice for some people along the way as well. So, but again, it's just another example of where you put yourself out there, and maybe that's part of the way that you've coped. I don't know. I'm just fascinated by how you've gone from survive to thrive. It's that mechanism is fascinating.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, now that you mentioned that, I think it's everything put together, right? Spending 10 years doing that, going through the abusive marriage that I was in, the childhood that I had, it just slowly molded me into who I am today. And so the whole idea with Angie's World, which again, I wish I could do more with, is the idea was just to help people. If people who are feeling depressed or suicidal, like there is another way. People who had a rough childhood and maybe they're not where they want to be, like, no, you can get there. And I want to do more. And one thing I want people to know is, like, you could always reach out to me, never feel intimidated or like she's not going to, I respond to every single message. And my goal is really to help people. And I hope that one day, like, I help people in sales, but it's cool. We get to help people with technology, but I want to help people like with life. Like, what are you going through? How can I help you? And I hope to really be able to do that one day. And it took me many years to get to where I am today to be able to do both. Because I always thought it had to be one or the other. At first, I was like, I'm going to be a life coach and start from the bottom. But I don't have an income. Okay, so now I'm in IT, right? Let's go back to the Cisco days. Well, I can't be touting off, that I'm a life coach and helping people. I got to focus on this. Then I was able to learn I can do both. I can do that. And then this is on the side. And I hope that one day it grows into something bigger. So if you ever open up a life coaching org and you want to recruit me, then
there's no one else I want working within that organization other than you, Angie. So for sure, you've got that job. But look, I think, look, what you've done, you've built Angie's World. It's always that frustration, isn't it? It's like, I know I need to do more, and I need to do, but what you've already done there with those blog posts is incredible. And I wouldn't be surprised if it saves a few people along the way as well. And just what else could you wish for in terms of giving back? And especially as many people in your situation would be looking to take, not to give back. Be like, no, I deserve much. I deserve to be given stuff, not to give back. But your attitude's just amazing. So look, well, I think I said to you we're shooting for 45 minutes. We're just about hitting an hour, and I feel as though we could keep talking. So we're definitely saying this is part one. We're definitely saying this is part one, if that's okay.
Part one of 10.
Part one of 10. Yeah, exactly. And somehow we can make that part of, you can upload it to Angie's World, and that helps you with that goal as well. But look, you shared a lot today. It's always an inspiration talking to you. I was kind of really looking forward to speaking to you, but also just like, what an opportunity. So Angie, where do people find you? Because I know you've made that offer, you respond to anybody. If anyone wants to reach out to Angie, honestly, she's just the best, especially if you're having a tough time, you want to speak to someone about tough times, reach out to Angie. Can't think of a better person to give you some advice.
Thank you. And now I'm regretting not putting my last name up here because it's always so difficult to see or to pronounce, but it's angiesworld.com is my website, but definitely find me on LinkedIn, Angie, and then last name Tajouidi, Tajouidi. Please connect with me. I don't deny anyone. So, and I really appreciate you, Ben. Like you're amazing. Our energy's connected since day one. So meant to be, but you've inspired me over the years too. You really have. You inspired me to create the prospecting class that I did internally at NetApp and with my partners. You inspired me to write, to help people. You really did. You are a huge reason that I started to feel confident in doing what I was doing, and then watching you do it as well. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. It means a lot to me, Angie. So look, thank you so much for your time today. Yeah, the links to contact Angie will be in the show notes below. So do connect with her and reach out to her. And Angie, yeah, once again, we'll wrap it up there because I'm way over time. So thank you for today. It's been amazing, and I can't wait to listen back to this one. So Angie, thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.